All right, what's up, everybody? Spike Shooter here with Jonah Smark, and you're gonna review the shitstorm that was AEW's Blood and Guts, which not even a pay-per-view like feel at all. I know that a lot of us would like to say that WWE makes a lot of pay-per-views that feel like it could be any other Raw or SmackDown, but at least with WWE it does sort of have a pay-per-view like atmosphere to it at points. So I know that Jonah Smark here did not see Blood and Guts at all, which I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm gonna go with a good thing, just looking at how bad this entire show was.
Yeah, I mean, from the few things I've read about it and heard about it, it was not big. It they made it seem overhyped for what it was, and it just was literally like another episode of like generic Raw where they try to make it like, ooh, a Legends night that have slowly become trashy.
Oh, we got a Randy Orton's ring boners saying "Spiky." How's it going, Ring Boner? I know you did AEW video earlier. I still have to check that out, but yeah. All right,
Shit.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to subscribe to Rourke then because I know I got ZUBAIR on there. I got you. I'm gonna have to start watching Rourke's videos.
yeah, he's a very interesting guy. I haven't had him on the stream yet. I had Bobby Hill last night, which was definitely an interesting one. But we only got to the main event, the Blood and Guts main event, which we'll get to, and I think you're going to be laughing about that. But we're going to start out with the first one. Now, the way they were doing it, they were doing the first hour being pre-taped to the crowd, which was like 40-50% of the arena. So that was pretty much everything that wasn't Blood and Guts for the first hour. I think there were a couple promos in there too. But they start out with the tag team match, which was John Moxley or Dean Ambrose and A. Kingston, the guy that sold the biggest botch in wrestling history with the explosion match at their last pay-per-view. And they're facing Kenny Omega and this Japanese guy who I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but it was kind of weird that they had the Japanese guy wrestling in official clothing. Like if you're like a cameraman and you had to wear like fancy clothes for that, that's what the Japanese guy was wearing for the entire match.
Sounds god awful as usual.
Yeah, but the match itself, there was just nothing to it. And it's sad because, like, I am not going to just repeat what the Smart Busters say, but I honestly did think that Dean Ambrose was the best member of the Shield when they first started out back in 2012 and 2013. But it just seems like even near the tail end of their run, Dean just got worse and worse. He just became much more retarded, having his tongue hanging out like this. And then as soon as that breakup happened, he just got 10 times worse. And now that he's in AEW, it's like not much has changed except he's cussing a little bit more. But yeah, this was just a horrible match. I mean, Kenny Omega is gay as he usually is. But after the match, we had the big sweaty bears, Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows, come in to interview along with the Young Bucks.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And they were just beating up Eddie Kingston and John Moxley the whole time. It was just very forgettable. I mean, there's not really one spot that I can think of from the match that I can really remember right now. But yeah, just forgettable trash.
I can't think of anything that the goddamn sweaty bears have done that's even memorable.
Yeah. No, Well, they were in WWE being AJ Styles' butt buddies. That's probably what they were most memorable for, or for like this weird doctors skits that they were doing when they were in lab coats and shit like that. But other than that, no, there's not really much to say about Karl Anderson or Luke Gallows in more recent times. Seriously, I don't know why they are like the Smarks' biggest praised tag team. I don't know if it's Dave Meltzer or what that got them into it, but there's just nothing to them. Just big, sweaty, neck-beardy guys. Oh, but they wrestled in Japan. That's what it was.
Oh, great. More wrestlers who do flips and potentially stick fingers in each other's butts. That's pretty much what comes out there.
Well, we haven't gotten that yet from Karl Anderson or Luke Gallows, but they did do some sort of video where they were swinging their penises around, apparently. I didn't know about this until SmartBusters.
Yeah.
What was that? Yep, that's the gay porn that SmartBusters were talking about. I don't know why we refer to SmartBusters so much. We shouldn't do that so often. But anyway, the next match after this was Cody Rhodes and a guy named QT Marshall. I mean, this one was a little bit longer, only went 12 minutes compared to the tag team, which was like 8 minutes. But yeah, this one, again, nothing too memorable except for Cody Rhodes pulling QT Marshall's wrestling pants down to show his bare ass crack, because that's what AEW fans love seeing, just more ass cracks. But yeah. Oh, and another funny thing was seeing Arn Anderson like backing up Cody Rhodes too, despite him looking like he's 90 years old these days.
Like, why is he there? He's old. People get who he is. He's done. It's just to have a name there.
Yeah, your feed is like really bad at the moment. Oh, okay.
Fuck.
Yeah. Okay, you're good now. But yeah, Arn Anderson. They actually had Arn Anderson throw a couple punches at QT Marshall too. Which this is a guy that can't even feel like one of his arms, and he hasn't for like the better part of 25 years. But they have him punch out QT Marshall. I don't even know who this QT Marshall
is. Arn Anderson just a Ric Flair replacement for AEW?
I mean, we can say that Sting is, honestly, because he's around with this guy that's trying to be like Finn Balor with the face paint. Yeah. No, he was originally supposed to be there to be like a backstage producer like he was in WWE, but I guess they have him on camera now. Yeah, awful match. And then we have a 1.5 minute women's match, which was Dr. Britt Baker and Julia Hart, who's in no relation to the Hart family. I will say this, Britt Baker is okay for in the looks department. She's okay. I wouldn't say the greatest wrestler or the greatest female wrestler, but at least she's easy on the eyes. I mean, you can look at a photo of her and she's like, okay, she's not half bad. But yeah, just a 1.5 minute match. Women's Revolution there, Michael.
Oh yeah, that's real revolutionary.
Try to sound like JBL on that impression.
A minute and a half is revolutionary. That's just embarrassing.
Oh, but AEW is supposed to be the more progressive wrestling brand.
You want to know what else was revolutionary? Those Playboy photo shoot and photo reveals that took like 10 to 20 minutes of SmackDown. Those were wonderful.
Absolutely. Those were the days with Tori Wilson doing 2 different Playboy covers and one with Sable too. God bless Sable. She's awesome. And she's married to Brock Lesnar, which is also really awesome. I know that sounds hacky and very anti-smarky, and I hate anti-smarks just as much as I hate regular smarks. But Brock Lesnar, I grew up watching and really loving. So any connection to Brock Lesnar, I gotta be good with as well. But yeah, just a minute and a half women's wrestling match. Nothing really to say. So then the next match, we have it's a 4-way tag team match for a shot at the AEW Tag Team Championships. And one team is composed of guys that you might remember from the TNA years.
Oh dear.
Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian is one team. Curryman memories.
The X Division.
I just want to let everybody know that Jonas Smark's favorite wrestler when he was in TNA was Curryman. So
Curryman was entertaining, but definitely not a favorite.
But they faced Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and as you probably know, Jungle Boy is Luke Perry's son, who got into wrestling. I guess they got him just on name recognition, but they also had the Varsity Blondes, which is just guys with long blonde hair, and one of them is actually Brian Pillman's son too. And then there was another jobber tag team I'm not even going to talk about, but yeah, that was another forgettable match. Nothing really much happened with that, but your old favorites actually won that match too, so you must be excited by that.
Oh, I am beyond thrilled. That just immediately made my night. That two talents going nowhere made it in a no talent company.
How old are those two anyway? They must be like in their 40s now.
They're in their 40s or 50s easily, because I remember growing up and they were definitely up there with age. Like, I think they're older than Samoa Joe and them. I think they're like Kurt Angle age, but not as athletic or looking well for their age.
Okay, yeah. I kind of remembered some of the stuff that they did and not being too enamored by them, but I think they were in ROH right before they were in AEW. And I remember watching a recent episode and being like, wait, these guys aren't doing much. So
no, it was all X Division.
What was that?
It was all X Division and tag crap with them.
Yeah. I mean, the X Division was the one thing that TNA really wanted to set itself apart with from WWE with, along with this excited ring. And unfortunately, I think that the X Division, that whole thing was what kind of led to the decline of wrestling, because now everybody became enamored with these X Division wrestlers, more specifically Marks, and wrestling's been the same ever since. But yeah, so then we had like two promos, one that featured Rusev, or as he's known as Miro now. I think it was about something to do with an upcoming title shot, and it was very forgettable. I think that they have completely destroyed him ever since he went into AEW, which is kind of sad, knowing how much potential that we know he has. But no, we can't take him seriously anymore, whether he's Rusev or as Miro. I mean, what did you think of Rusev during his time in WWE?
I think he was underutilized, like a lot of good talents. Could have been something, but then once they started all the gimmicks and stuff with Lana, it sort of like went downhill, and now Lana's just a joke, and I don't see how he could recover from what he did. I mean, he has nowhere to go. TNA's crap. AEW is a joke. Ring of Honor, maybe, but yeah, or go to New Japan and be with a bunch of flippy people who finger each other. So,
and there's plenty of that in the indie scene. Lots of fingers. It's not just from the Kenny Omegas and that troupe, but it's happening in a shit ton of places. I think it all started with Joey Ryan's penis gags that he did like
Yep,
4 or 5
saw
years
that.
ago. And now he's no longer in wrestling because of all sorts of sexual harassment lawsuits.
I can't imagine why.
Oh, that was that was just that was just awesome. How after something like that, you'd see all these women coming forward to talk about that. But then they do another promo with Kenny Omega and some short blonde midget that, again, I've never heard of. And it had to do with a title shot for next week. This is another reason why I was calling this whole event a glorified Dynamite, because they always kept on promoting stuff for next week instead of just letting it be its own thing. I mean, they talked about Jon Moxley having some sort of title match with a Japanese guy from New Japan, and then you got these two promos for matches for next week. It's like, can you be more obvious in wanting to get people that are watching tonight to watch next week's show? I mean, I don't think anybody cares, honestly. I mean, you even heard me say that I didn't even know that this was going to be sort of like a pay-per-view. I thought it was just going to be the blood and guts match, and it was just going to be like a 2-hour thing. So, yeah, that really took a lot of the atmosphere away from this whole event, I think, at least in my view.
Just sounds awful. I don't get why promote stuff for next week when A, your brand sucks, and B, you're promoting stuff for next week that no one's going to care about, and with people that you don't care about, and you're just scraping the bottom of the talent barrel to get people. Hey, next week we're going to have people who couldn't make it in the real world company, so they're going to try to make it in our B or C grade company. So tune in next week to watch people who are going nowhere try to make it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. So now we come to the main event, which is the Blood and Guts match, which is basically the War Games match, which you have 2 rings surrounded by a steel cage with a roof on top of it, pretty much. And for most of the match, it was just a spot after spot after spot after spot after spot with these wrestlers. I think if you saw this, the only wrestlers that you would have known was Ty Dillinger, who was the perfect 10 guy in NXT and for a little bit in the main roster. Jack Swagger was there, although he's now called Jake Hager or something like that. And he's kind of being booked as being like a Brock Lesnar type for AEW, which I find hilarious. And then there's Chris Jericho, who I think is probably the best they got there. I know he's not in the best of shape compared to what he was like 10 years ago, but he's the biggest name they got outside of Sting. And at least he can still somewhat go a little bit. But yeah, it was a spot fest for the most part until MJF, who I told you is kind of trying to do a Miz impersonation. He comes in, and then Chris Jericho comes in, and then all of a sudden, when everybody has been fighting each other, they all stop when Chris Jericho comes in, and then they all line up with their respective teams and then have a stare down, like completely no selling all the other punches that they were doing. And then they go up and attack everybody else. So yeah, I that's another thing about indie wrestling that I don't think anybody really likes who actually knows a thing or two about the wrestling industry. No selling is like a cardinal sin, honestly, unless you have a gimmick that involves you to no sell certain moves. But if you're a small vanilla midget, no character, no gimmick, or anything like that, you can't just no sell at any point that you feel like it. But the big spot, I mean, I can talk about how the way the match ended. The big spot was that MJF had Chris Jericho up on top of the cage on the roof, and he was about to throw Jericho up into the entry ramp. And the gayest thing happened. Members of Chris Jericho's team went up and started waving their hands, saying, "No, please don't do it! Please don't do it!" And it was so freaking embarrassing. And the Chris Jericho's team decided to throw in the white flag, and that was the end of the match.
Wait, it ended with them pretty much begging, saying, "Don't hurt him, don't attack him."
Don't throw him off the cage like he was gonna do.
What the fuck type of ending
That
is
was
that?
the ending. And here's the worst part. After the bell rung, like a couple minutes after that, this is what most people are talking about. So MJF has Chris Jericho up, and then he decides to actually throw him off the cage. And it was so awful because what he did was he did just like a very light push, but Jericho like sold it as like being a complete shove. And then he falls onto the ramp. And then what happens is he goes through the entrance ramp, but the part that he ended up falling into, it was like a cardboard with just looking like the steel ramp part as a way to like cushion the fall. So it was basically fake in that particular spot.
Ugh.
And people are saying, well, he's like 51 years old. He can't take spots like that anymore. And it's like, do you even remember in WWE like big spots that Chris Jericho did? Like any big jumps, any big sort of like shit like that yourself?
Not really. Not that I can remember.
I mean, he was been very much a safe wrestler. And that is true considering he barely even got injured. I think that's why he's lasted as long as he did, because he hasn't taken the giant falls. He hasn't taken the big bumps. This was like the only one that I can think of during the 30 years that he's been in the business where he's taken a bump like that. And yet they still had to find a way to protect him. I mean, he's not Sting in that one more bump and he's going to be like probably in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But come on now. Jericho's fine. He doesn't have any sort of injuries or any sort of conditions that will make it hard for him to take big spots. And even if that was the case, why the hell would you even do the spot to begin with? Seriously.
So it was just crappy hype for this big spot. Yeah. They pretty much end the match by, "Oh, don't stop trying to hurt him, just like don't throw him off," and then they throw him into something that just looks like it was constructed out of cardboard.
Yep. Or at least the area they fell on the ramp was made of cardboard.
What I want to know is why do they have ZUBAIR setting up their spots for them on a pay-per-view?
That's true. We need ZUBAIR to go to AEW and teach them how to properly do the spots. That would be great. ZUBAIR, if you're watching right now, please give them a call. You can help them big time with this. That was great. I would mark out for that if AEW did something like that. Okay, so overall, this whole match, this whole pay-per-view, even though it didn't even feel like a pay-per-view, was such a disappointment.
Why would you pay for this? I'd be disappointed watching this for free. I can't imagine buying it. How much does this crap cost?
It was a free show. It was on TNT.
That explains it.
Yeah. I think I don't know what their next one is. I think it was advertised as All or Nothing or something like that. But yeah, this was just a terrible show. Honestly, you have to be like a giant ass AEW mark to really find any sort of enjoyment with this one. And thankfully, I'm not, because I think this was like the third AEW show that I saw in total over the year that they've been around. And I don't feel like even watching it unless there's something that might be bigger than this. But considering we were promised blood and guts and only got, oh yeah, that was another thing. I think maybe half the participants actually had blood on their face during this. It wasn't as gruesome as they were trying their hardest to make it out to be. But yeah, just a horrible show, and that's really about it. I'm not going to give it a rating. I'm not going to be hacky like I used to be when I was giving all these bullshit ratings, like I was Dave Meltzer doing 5-star matches. No, that I'm not going to do that. But it was a very, very bad show.
So just overhyped for underselling anything and just trash.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, you can go back and watch it yourself. You can find a source to view it, but I think you'd probably feel the same way that I did, which is, if there's one positive that I'll take from this, it's that it was short. I mean, you know how slow 3-hour Raws can be. At least I can say that this was easy to digest, and the 2 hours did make a difference. But that's as far as I'm going to get with AEW. Seriously. I mean, and it's funny too because we had the NXT fans going against the AEW fans in their quote unquote Wednesday night war, and yet they have the same type of wrestlers doing the same type of wrestling, always being like spot best bullshit. But they're going to continue to draw the battle lines with this, no matter what. It's really bad, and I think they only just barely had 1 million viewers for this too, which is kind of surprising with the way they hyped it up. I thought they would at least get like 200 viewers, 1,200,000 viewers, but no, not even that. So that tells you what wrestling, how people really care about this company. Seriously.
What I want to know is whatever the last TNA pay-per-view was, if they're still doing those, what did they rate versus this?
They probably did less than that, honestly, considering nobody is really watching that either. I mean, Kenny Omega, as soon as Kenny Omega joined them, I think it's hurt them a lot more than they already were, because I keep seeing the wrestling sites talk about TNA viewership, and I remember seeing the ratings like going down each week that Kenny Omega was there. So that's what we have to say about that. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. Horrible show. Do you want to do a roster evaluation for our next video?
Yeah, I'm down to do whatever
Okay.
whatever brand you want to do, and I'll actually have my computer in front of me so I can actually look at shit and see how embarrassing half of these people are.
Okay. So let's plan for that. I don't know when that's going to come out, but it'll probably be after the weekend, seriously, because I think we need to, like I said, we need to space out the videos just to avoid burnout. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Horrible show. I don't know if I'm going to try again with AEW unless it's for something that really is a special occasion, like something they'll hype up and we can just rip on it again. But yeah, that's really about it, guys. So this is Spike Shooter and Joan of Arc saying, see you later.